One of the first things that I would recommend for anyone dealing with PKD, you've got to become neurologically and emotionally non-reactive to it. If you are in an amygdala-triggered state because of a condition like PKD, it is very, very hard to heal, and the body won't let you. One of the things that made me heal powerfully was the reset method. And what this is a step-by-step thing to just let go of any neurological or specifically sympathetic activation that's associated with knowing you have PKD.
The premier source of patient-centered information on PKD and how to reverse it. This is Felix Mueller.
Hello everyone, this is Felix, your friendly neighborhood kidney hacker, coming back with another episode of the Reversing PKD Podcast. Longtime listeners know we talk about the Bulletproof diet in many episodes, but this time, the man himself joins us. For the first time, Dave Asprey, author of the Bulletproof diet and host of the Human Upgrade podcast, is dropping in to give us a sneak peek at his brand new book, Heavily Meditated. And of course, to talk Bulletproof diet, stress reduction, supplements, and PKD. In this short and sweet conversation, we'll talk about why calming the nervous system is actually the missing link for shrinking cysts. And trust me, this is not marketing. And we'll talk about this much more in the future. We'll talk about the Bulletproof diet, of course, new potential supplements to try for PKD, and we'll talk about Dave's PKD hypothesis and how to best mitigate it in his mind. If you've never heard of Klotho or Calcium AEP, this one's for you. And of course, we'll address one of my favorite topics, the open mystery of whether fungi, endotoxin, or other toxins trigger cyst growth. So much to talk about and so little time. This is the one we've all been waiting for. Here's my chat with the author of the Bulletproof diet and Heavily Meditated, Dave Asprey. Hey Dave, thanks so much for joining us today. I know you're super busy with the new book launch and everything.
Happy to help.
I asked you if you wanted to do the foreword for my book, Reversing Polycystic Kidney Disease.
Absolutely.
And you were so gracious to do it, which is amazing. And it was just a perfect fit for it because we actually benefited from a lot of your stuff in the PKD community.
Good. That's what my stuff is there for. And I wrote the foreword for your book because you have that beautiful mindset that's like, I'm going to figure this out. And there's all sorts of people say, well, that's impossible, therefore you can't do it. Right. And they said the same thing about traveling at more than 17 miles an hour. Literally, scientists saying it's impossible. The air will go away. Like, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Of course it's possible to reverse this. We're just figuring it out. And so thank you for just like giving a big middle finger to people who say you can't do it. That's how you change.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. Well, I've been actually listening to the podcast since like your first episode. I started listening in 2014. Started with your diet also at the same time. And I have polycystic kidney disease, as do many of the listeners. And I was super surprised to see like function improvement and also size reduction of cysts and kidney, which is actually thought of as impossible, right?
Not anymore, apparently.
Apparently. And this discovery, right, like using your diet for PKD, it opened up, I don't know if you know this, but it opened up a completely new field of research in PKD. So now there's over 13 papers on ketogenic diet and PKD. Before there were 0.
Dude, that makes me really happy. Felix, the vast majority of diseases, especially chronic ones, they're tied to mitochondrial dysfunction. Ketosis helps mitochondria. And what you need to do is figure out what you can do about mTOR and cyclic AMP signaling. And there's all sorts of techniques that work for longevity that stop autoimmunity, that stop chronic disease. Like the same tools that make old people young make young people powerful. Like biohacking tools stop many forms of illness because of mitochondria. So it makes sense that it would work.
It does. And I wanted to ask you if I can sort of give you the rapid fire background on PKD to sort of pick your brain on what you think is going on. Mm-hmm. So it's genetic. I inherited it from my dad, right? And it's a mutation and it leads to lower intracellular calcium, so affecting mitochondrial respiration, and also alters the tight junction composition, which seems to lower resistance to toxins and pathogens to like enter cells. And the cystic cells, they actually have the Warburg effect going on, so parallels to cancer.
Yep.
And the interesting thing is that germ-free PKD mice are basically cyst-free until they get non-sterile food again. And in some studies in the lab, they need endotoxin to get cyst growth. But in other studies, they think they can do it without it. At least they think their stuff is sterile, which I don't know if it is. And then the cyst fluid itself is full of toxins. And if you take the fluid and you put it on non-PKD kidney tissue, it grows a cyst, even if it's not PKD, right? So, and the Bulletproof diet and ketogenic diet, they improve kidney function and decrease kidney size in many patients, but not in everybody. And right now, the scientists are focused on like looking for the off switch for cyst growth, which might be a bad idea because the cyst fluid seems to be used to store away that stuff. So with all that in the rapid fire mode, like prompting Dave GPT right now, what do you think is happening in PKD? What could be happening? And what do you think is the better target to look at?
Are you familiar with the cell danger response?
Yes, I've actually just talked to Mark Lintern about this.
Okay. So one of the first things that I would recommend for anyone dealing with a condition like PKD is you've got to become neurologically and emotionally non-reactive to it. So you ever see Neo in The Matrix where he just wakes up and goes, no. Right. And like all of the bullets fall out of the air.
Yeah.
If you are in an amygdala triggered state because of a condition like PKD, it is very, very hard to heal and the body won't let you. Right. So you've got to run through that side of things. That's why I wrote Heavily Meditated, because I went from really bad chronic fatigue syndrome. I have weird genetic conditions, not PKD, around the way my body makes cortisol and other catecholamines. I've dealt with many, many different health challenges that most people wouldn't be familiar with. Yeah. So one of the things that made me heal powerfully was changing my mindset. And that's why I Heavily Meditated. I'm not even kidding, guys. Pick it up, go to the chapter on the reset mode or the reset method. And what this is a step-by-step thing to just let go of any neurological or specifically sympathetic activation that's associated with knowing you have PKD. And that's step one. Right. And that book is called Heavily Meditated. It's just coming out. This is, people spend $16,000 in 5 days with electrodes on their head to learn this until now. And I'm giving it away in the book. So start with that because that will turn off the cell danger response because you reduce sympathetic activation. And that allows your mitochondria to focus on healing instead of focus on reacting to threats. Really important step in healing. And it's important across a whole variety of autoimmune things. I don't care if it's Hashimoto's or you've got chronic fatigue or you've got PKD. You got to be like at peace with, I've got this, I'm working on it, and not constantly being triggered every time. Like, oh my gosh, I'm eating a burger. What's it going to do to my kidneys? Wow. The second thing that I think is most important for this is Klotho.
Jim Planty's thing?
Well, Jim's a friend who, for many years, who was working on Klotho. But it turns out, for listeners, Klotho is one of the most powerful ways of protecting your kidneys. It's also a profound longevity molecule. Mm-hmm. And I wrote about it in Superhuman, my big longevity book, and I talked about Jim because he was the only one working on it. Yeah. Well, since then, there is now evidence that certain kinds of electrical stimulation may be able to raise Klotho. And I'm working with 2 different companies that are on the very edge of having Klotho-based gene therapy, where they can inject you with things that instruct your cells to make more Klotho, which would be profoundly kidney protective. And in the meantime, you should use the biohacking techniques, like things like Boswellia, which reduce renal inflammation directly. I've been taking that stuff for 25 years. By the way, I only have 1 kidney. So I'd like to keep that kidney working really, really well.
Sure.
Another thing that you may not know about, it is in a couple of my books. It's Calcium AEP. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with that?
I've looked at it, but I've never taken it. You think I should?
Dude, it's kidney protective, actually really good kidney protection in multiple studies. This modulates the membranes of your cells and in a beneficial way. It helps to seal them. And I don't know if in PKD you have cell membrane leakiness or just junction. And then this idea that lipopolysaccharides are coming through, you need to make sure that you really take care of the lining of your gut. Yeah. I'm forgetting the name of the drug. There's a drug that actually causes you to form more mucin to line the gut, which would probably be a good drug. You also can look at certain types of fiber that may be good at that. Omnibiotic makes a product that could be helpful for that. It comes from papaya, and it helps in studies to tighten those junctions. A little bit of alkalinity. I think potassium bicarbonate is a really powerful thing that we should all be doing, either potassium or sodium or maybe magnesium bicarb on a regular basis.
That's the one that's hard to get, right? Is it the potassium bicarb that you have to like make yourself?
No, you can buy potassium bicarb capsules. It's like baking soda, but made with potassium.
Okay.
You're talking about magnesium, where you have to pour magnesium into sparkly water.
That's the one. Yeah.
I tried that stuff. I don't think it did anything other than just taking other forms of magnesium.
Yeah.
You could also modulate mTOR with something like rapamycin, but it doesn't work as well as something like qualia senolytic, which would be a good thing. That means ketosis and some fasting, right? It's going to be really, really powerful for you.
Do you have any ideas on narrowing down, like even in a scientific setting, if it is an actual pathogen, a toxin that is triggering cyst growth? Like if it's, should it be endotoxin? Should it be a toxin that's produced by some fungus? Because we're seeing differing reactions to this diet in different people.
I would bet it's fungal, just because so many things that are hard to explain are. Get a Viome test. Viome. They have, the food recommendations and all. I don't know if they have science around PKD, but they're going to tell you all the weird stuff growing in there. And you may find you'll have a plant virus that you don't know about.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
And I have actual aspergillus, so that might also...
well, aspergillus would be a prime suspect. In fact, what I would consider would be, and just check with your doctor first, I'd consider a 6-month course of Sporanox for almost anyone with a chronic illness, because fungus is hard to spot and can take up residence inside your body. And many times when there's cancer, you take an antifungal, it goes away. Or for different kinds of cancer, an antiparasitic. So I don't know that all cancer is what they think it is, but the vast majority of the time it's mitochondrial. And after that, I look at fungus and parasites, and maybe 2% of it's, quote, genetic. But there's a pretty clear case that it's usually not genetic, because there aren't really common genes. Even BRCA isn't as commonly associated as people think it is. Yeah. So for this, well, what's causing a cyst to grow? Like I would love to see 100 people in your community do a Viome test and see like what's common there. And if it's a bacterial thing, is there any evidence that just wiping out your gut bacteria and taking a bunch of pre and probiotics, or even a fecal matter transplant, is that helpful? But none of this stuff works if your body's constantly like, I'm gonna die. No, you got to get out of that state first, which is why heavily meditated is so relevant for this. And once you're like, I'm calm, I've got this, then the experiments have a much greater likelihood of working. It's like bedside manner.
I guess in your book, there's also going to be a lot on like lowering blood glucose from cortisol response, right? Which is very important, PKD.
Oh, for sure. In fact, lowering blood glucose is important, and not having excessive cortisol floating around is important. And one of the techniques you can learn about in heavily meditated is called bicep. And it's not this bicep on your arm, it's brief, intentional, conscious exposure to pain. You're like, what are you talking about, Dave? Well, stick with me for a second. Monks, they used to whip themselves. It's called self-flagellation. Yogis lay on beds of nails. And biohackers sit in cold plunges, right? All of these have in common, or just eat a bunch of jalapenos, similar. It's this brief exposure to pain causes your body's dopamine receptors to become more sensitized. And what that means is you're calmer, and it takes less motivation throughout the day. Like it takes less dopamine to motivate you. So if you're working on a healing journey and you're paying for your family and like living your life, and like this is one of the many things I'm dealing with, right? And I've got this. Having better functioning dopamine is really powerful, and that regulates your cortisol.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel it after things like cold shower. I think it's super valuable to lower cortisol. I'm really surprised you said I can sort of mentally lower the cell danger response. Mark hasn't mentioned that, so that's very interesting.
It's an amygdala response. What happens is your body processes reality inside your cells and mitochondria, and this is like a core part of heavily meditated. And it does that in about a third of a second before your brain gets any signal from reality. So it's like if you're watching network TV, there's an 8-second window in case if someone drops an F-bomb, they can censor it. Your body has a 1/3 of a second censorship window on reality, and it decides how much stress you're going to feel during that time. The reset process is the tool for reprogramming the body to not lose its mind before it even gets to your mind.
Yeah. I'm super stoked to read this and to let people know about it. I'm recommending your books all the time, so this would be just a logical expansion of that. And
Thank you, Felix. It makes me really happy that my work has, in some small way, helped you in the whole PKD community, because you can make yourself way more powerful. You can heal from things you're not supposed to be able to heal from. I've seen it over and over.
Yeah, it's true. And it's so valuable to have your podcast also as a resource to listen to all the experts and to get a sense of how to think and how to do this, because having this foundation and to be able to connect the dots, which is one of your great skills, is something that you also give to other people with this podcast. This is amazing.
It's learning how to think and learning systems biology and learning how the nervous system and immune system are interconnected. That's core the human upgrade.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Felix. Have a beautiful day.
Wow. That was some great info in 15 minutes. So to recap, for me, these are the main takeaways. Mindset first. Dave's new book, Heavily Meditated, lays out the reset method for dialing down the cell danger response, which is step 0 before any diet or supplement can really work. We've not addressed this factor nearly at all in the past, and that's about to change. Feeling like we're in danger on a psychological, emotional, or even physical level will wreck our ability to heal. This is more important than all the ketones you could ever have. Don't get me wrong, diet and lifestyle are the key to reversing PKD, but they will not work if you don't have inner peace. Second, of course, the Bulletproof diet is still the best dietary approach for PKD. No surprises there. Clean, nutrient-dense keto plus the right fasting window keeps glucose low, supports mitochondria, and gives your body the chance to reverse PKD. Some things we mentioned to possibly investigate further for kidney protection are raising Klotho might be possible with gene therapy in the future, which we will need to see about the safety. But meanwhile, fasting, exercise, and boswellia extract will improve levels. In animal studies, they were able to double them, and I calculated the human equivalent dose for that, and I put it in the description, together with a link for one product that you could look at. Calcium AEP is an interesting supplement as it will improve the integrity of our cell membranes. And we might want to seal the gut to cut down endotoxin leak into the bloodstream, as we talked about frequently in other episodes. And this means things like prebiotics, like sun fiber, which Dave used to sell actually, and targeted probiotics like Megaspore or Omnibiotics gut lining formula. Dave also suspects we need to keep an eye on fungal toxins and bacterial endotoxin. Full Viome panel or a similar test is a good idea to get the picture on what's going on inside the gut. And I'll have Dave's referral link in the description below so you can get 10% off on that and give Dave a little bit of support. And the cool thing is that Viome actually measures your level of endotoxin producing bacteria in the gut, and it gives you recommendations on how to reduce them. I've done a couple of Viome tests in the past, and I've had some endotoxin producers at a medium level. And some of the recommendations that they give you are compatible with the Bulletproof diet, and some of them are not. So you have to mix and match and sort of find the appropriate combination of those for you. If you found today's episode helpful, please leave a 5-star review on your podcast app or hit the like and subscribe buttons on YouTube. That way we get the PKD conversation to more people that need to hear it. Until next time, happy healing.